in the days when the American wilderness stretched as far as the eye could see, when settlers braved untamed lands to carve out new lives, there walked a man who would become a living legend, a man not of wealth or power, but of kindness and purpose. His name was Johnny Appleseed. With nothing but a tin pot for a hat, a humble sack full of apple seeds slung over his shoulder, and the earth beneath his bare feet, he set out on an incredible journey, a journey that would forever change the landscape of this growing nation. This is his story. This is the story of Johnny Appleseed, a legend who didn't just plant trees, but planted hope. Our story begins in the late 1700s, in a small, quiet town in Massachusetts. Born John Chapman, Johnny was no ordinary boy. From a young age, he was drawn to the beauty of nature. While other children played with toys or chased one another through the streets, Johnny wandered into the woods, where he found joy in the trees, the flowers, the rivers. He loved nothing more than climbing apple trees, gathering their ripe fruit, and carefully collecting the seeds from the cores. There was something about those tiny seeds that fascinated him. How something so small could grow into a towering tree, full of life, shade, and sustenance. He would often sit for hours, gazing at the trees, wondering what would happen if he planted just a few of those seeds in the ground and waited patiently for them to grow. These seeds, young Johnny would say to himself, they could grow into something big, something beautiful, something lasting. From that moment, Johnny knew what he wanted to do with his life. He wasn't interested in becoming rich, nor was he looking for fame. He simply wanted to travel and plant apple trees, trees that could provide food, shade, and beauty for future generations. As Johnny grew older, his love for nature deepened. But it wasn't until he reached adulthood that he decided to set out on a mission that would span decades and thousands of miles. With nothing but a small sack of apple seeds, a cooking pot he wore as a makeshift hat, and the clothes on his back, Johnny set out on foot. His destination? The western frontier, where new settlers were beginning to build their lives in the vast, untamed wilderness. Johnny walked for miles and miles, barefoot, through forests, over mountains, across rivers. The earth was his home, the sky his roof, and the animals of the forest his companions. Everywhere he went, he left behind a trail of apple seeds, planting them in fertile soil, near rivers, and along paths where settlers would one day find them. But Johnny wasn't just planting trees. He was planting hope. He knew that one day, these settlers would need food, shade, and even something as simple as a beautiful tree to remind them of home. His apple trees would offer all of that and more. They were a gift to the future, one that he knew would bear fruit for years to come. It wasn't an easy life. Johnny had no permanent home, no riches to speak of, and often went without food or shelter. But he was happy, knowing that with every seed he planted, he was leaving the world a little better than he found it. Johnny wasn't just a man who loved nature. He was a man who loved people and animals alike. Along his journey, he met settlers, farmers, and families, all struggling to make a living in the rough and wild land. Johnny would offer them seeds, teach them how to plant and care for apple trees, and even help them in their fields. He never asked for money in return, just the satisfaction of knowing that the apple trees would one day provide these families with a source of food and comfort. The settlers were grateful for Johnny's kindness, and soon word began to spread about the man who walked the land, planting apple trees and helping anyone he met. Some people thought Johnny was a bit strange. After all, who walks barefoot for hundreds of miles, carrying apple seeds and wearing a pot on their head? Others believed he was a man of great wisdom, who understood the earth and its secrets better than anyone else. But Johnny didn't mind what people thought of him. He was content, knowing that his trees were growing, that they would one day provide for the people of the land. His gentle nature extended to animals as well. It was said that Johnny never harmed a creature, not even the tiniest insect. Deer, birds, and rabbits would often follow him through the forests, as if they sensed his kindness and trusted him completely. He was, in many ways, a man at one with nature, someone who saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be. As the years passed, Johnny's journey continued. He planted apple seeds in every town, village, and farm he passed, leaving behind orchards in his wake. He traveled through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, spreading apple trees far and wide. Everywhere he went, he was welcomed with open arms, for people knew that where Johnny Appleseed walked, trees and hope would soon follow. Johnny's apple trees became a symbol of growth, prosperity, and the future. They provided settlers with food, wood for tools, and shade during the hot summer months. But more than that, they provided a sense of continuity, something to remind people that even in the harshest of times, life could still grow and flourish. Johnny's trees didn't just benefit the settlers. Over time, the apple trees became part of the natural landscape, providing food for animals and helping to stabilize the soil. His legacy was one not only of kindness and generosity, but of ecological balance, showing that humans and nature could coexist in harmony. As the years passed, Johnny's journey continued. He planted apple seeds in every town, village, and farm he passed, leaving behind orchards in his wake. He traveled through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, spreading apple trees far and wide. Everywhere he went, he was welcomed with open arms, for people knew that where Johnny Appleseed walked, trees and hope would soon follow. Johnny's apple trees became a symbol of growth, prosperity, and the future. They provided settlers with food, wood for tools, and shade during the hot summer months. But more than that, they provided a sense of continuity, something to remind people that even in the harshest of times, life could still grow and flourish. Johnny's trees didn't just benefit the settlers. Over time, the apple trees became part of the natural landscape, providing food for animals and helping to stabilize the soil. His legacy was one not only of kindness and generosity, but of ecological balance, showing that humans and nature could coexist in harmony. As Johnny grew older, his legend began to grow with him. People in faraway places began to hear stories of the kind man who traveled the land planting apple trees. Some believed Johnny had magical powers, that he could talk to the trees and animals, that he could summon rain or sunshine with a word. Others thought he was a bit of a wild man, living off the land and wearing no shoes, even in the harshest winters. But no matter what people believed, one thing was certain. Johnny Appleseed was a man who had made a lasting impact on the world around him. And so, Johnny continued his journey, never slowing down, never stopping. Even as his hair turned gray and his steps became slower, he kept walking, kept planting. His mission had no end, for as long as there was land to walk and seeds to plant, Johnny would be there. Johnny Appleseed's journey came to an end in 1845, but his legacy lives on to this day. The apple trees he planted still grow, their fruit feeding new generations of families, their branches providing shade and comfort. Johnny didn't just leave behind trees, he left behind a legacy of kindness, generosity, and love for the land. To this day, his story continues to inspire. Johnny Appleseed taught us that even the smallest act of kindness, a seed planted in the earth, can grow into something far greater than we could ever imagine. He showed us that one person, with a simple dream and a lot of determination, can change the world. So, the next time you bite into a crisp, sweet apple, think of Johnny Appleseed, the man who walked barefoot across the American frontier, planting seeds and spreading hope wherever he went.